I wrote the note. Folded it. I was done until she showed up in the snow at midnight. She didn't save me with words. Just by staying. I was 17 the night I decided to die. No grand reason. No final straw. Just an ache that never stopped. And a silence that no one noticed. From the outside, I was fine. Good grades. No trouble. Polite smile. Invisible pain. That night, I wrote a note. I didn't write it for anyone specific. Just whoever would find me first. It wasn't long. Only one sentence. It just hurts too much to pretend anymore. I folded it twice and left it on my desk. The plan was quiet. No drama. Just disappear the same way I'd lived in. Without causing problems. I waited until the house was asleep. But something happened. Not a miracle. Not a voice from heaven. A sound. A knock. 3 soft taps on my bedroom window. I froze. It was midnight. Snow outside. No one should have been there. I walked over and pulled the curtain. And there she was. Emily. She lived 2 houses down. We weren't friends. Just girls in the same school with similar math grades. She never came to my house before. Especially not in the snow. Especially not at midnight. I opened the window. "Can I come in?" she whispered. I nodded. Speechless. She climbed in like it was normal. Like she hadn't just crossed a silent battlefield. Then she held out her hand. "I just had this feeling," she said. "I don't know why. I just couldn't sleep. I felt like I needed to be here." And I broke. No screaming. No collapse. Just one slow sob that started in my ribs and didn't stop. She sat with me until sunrise. Didn't ask questions. Didn't say anything poetic. Just stayed. Present. Real. And I didn't die. When the sun came up, I thought it would feel like a fresh start. It didn't. It felt like shame. Like I'd been caught doing something terrible. Like Emily had seen something she wasn't supposed to. I sat on the edge of my bed staring at my own feet. My hands were shaking. My skin felt wrong, like I didn't fit in it anymore. Emily hadn't said much. She just sat on the carpet all night, leaning against the wall, occasionally sipping from the water bottle I gave her. Sometimes she looked at me. Sometimes she didn't. She didn't try to fix it. She didn't run. When my mom knocked on the door that morning, I panicked. Emily stood up and whispered, "You want me to stay?" I didn't say anything. But she stayed anyway. I opened the door and Mom glanced past me. "Is everything okay?" she asked. I heard voices. I nodded. "We just couldn't sleep. Girl stuff." She smiled. "Well, breakfast is ready if you want it." We didn't go downstairs. We just listened to the sounds of normal life, eggs on the pan, the faucet running, a radio playing quietly in the background. All I could think was how those sounds would have kept going without me. Emily left around 8. Before she did, she wrote her number on a sticky note from my desk. "If you ever want to talk. Or sit. Or not talk. Whatever." I kept the note. Pinned it behind a photo on my corkboard. Didn't call her that day. Or the next. But I didn't throw it away. The days that followed were strange. Not better. Not worse. Just different. The weight I carried didn't vanish, but now it had shape. A contour. A texture. I could feel where it started and where it ended. For the first time in years, it wasn't just fog. It was pain, and pain, I realized, meant I was still here. One night, I walked to the park down the street. I sat on the swing and just let the cold air bite at my face. A boy skateboarded past. Someone's dog barked at a squirrel. I closed my eyes. I didn't cry. I didn't think. I just didn't die. Weeks passed. Emily and I didn't become best friends. Not exactly. We were more like anchors. People who understood what it meant to feel too much and still keep breathing. Sometimes we'd go whole days without texting. Other times she'd send me a meme at 2 a.m. Or I'd drop a "you up" and she'd just reply with a heart. She didn't ask how I was doing. She just showed up. We sat in diners. Walked through grocery aisles. Built silence like a fortress around us. And that silence became safety. One afternoon, I found myself standing in the school counselor's office. I don't even remember deciding to go. My legs just walked there on their own. I didn't say much. Just sat across from her and said, "I'm not okay." She nodded. Didn't gasp. Didn't panic. Just handed me a tissue box and said, "Tell me where it hurts." And I did. Not all at once. But enough. That's when the shift started. Small things. I changed my ringtone to a song I liked instead of silence. I cleaned the dust off my bookshelf. I bought a plant and named it Maybe. And somewhere in the middle of all that, I began to wonder if maybe the pain wasn't the end of my story. Maybe it was the middle. And maybe the middle still had time to become something worth staying for. It took me months to say the words out loud. The real ones. Not, I'm tired. Not, I'm fine. Not even, I'm sad. The ones that lived at the back of my throat for years. I wanted to end my life. I didn't say them in a dramatic moment. I said them in the school library. To a girl I barely knew. Her name was Harper. We were paired up for a group project on 20th century American literature. She had a septum piercing, chipped black nail polish, and a voice that always sounded like she'd just woken up. We were sitting in the quiet corner, surrounded by old copies of The Grapes of Wrath and dusty book bins. She said, out of nowhere, I hate this book. Every sentence feels like a stomachache. I laughed. And she said, no, I'm serious. It reminds me of how my chest feels all the time. I froze. And then I asked, like pressure? She nodded. Like grief, but you're not allowed to grieve. I don't know why, but I said it. I know that feeling. Last year, I almost didn't make it. She looked at me. Really looked. And for a second, I thought she'd say something generic. You're so brave. Or, don't say that. But she just nodded. Then whispered, me too. We didn't talk much after that. We didn't need to. Sometimes truth doesn't lead to a conversation. It just opens a door. That night, I wrote in my journal. There are others. I'm not the only one. Maybe the silence I've lived in isn't emptiness. Maybe it's full of echoes I haven't heard yet. From then on, I began to notice them. The quiet ones. The ones who flinched when laughter got too loud. The ones who lingered after class. The ones who wrote sad poems in the margins of their notebooks. I didn't rush to save anyone. I wasn't trying to be a hero. I was just there. And slowly they started coming to me. One girl passed me a note in biology class. It read, how did you survive? Another messaged me on Instagram at 1:43 a.m. You don't know me, but I heard. Can I ask you something? They didn't want advice. They wanted proof. Proof that someone like them could exist in a world like this. By the end of senior year, I was unofficially the one people talked to when they couldn't talk to anyone else. And I didn't mind. Because somewhere in those quiet conversations, something had shifted again. The pain was still there. The ache, the weight, the memories all still part of me. But now I wasn't carrying it alone. And when you carry something with others, it changes shape. It becomes lighter. Not because it disappears, but because it matters. One afternoon, Emily found me sitting alone on the front steps of the school. She dropped down beside me, handed me a drink, and said, you've kind of become a thing, you know. I raised an eyebrow. A thing. She grinned. Yeah. Like, people call you the campus shrink. I laughed. God, that's depressing. She shrugged. Maybe? Or maybe it's beautiful. We sat in silence for a moment. Then she said quietly, you saved me, you know. I looked at her. She wasn't joking. She wasn't being poetic. She meant it. I didn't know how to say it before, she added. But that night, I wasn't just checking on you. I was looking for a reason to stay too. I didn't say anything. I just reached for her hand. That was the first time I thought, maybe this is what I'm supposed to do. Not just survive, but stay. And help others stay too. The first time I said it out loud. I want to start something. I wasn't even sure what I meant. It was a Thursday. Rainy. I was home from my first semester at community college, eating cereal at 3 p.m. like I was still in high school. Emily was lying on the floor with a throw pillow over her face. I said it without thinking. I want to build something. For kids like us. She didn't move. But after a few seconds, her voice came out muffled beneath the pillow. Like what? I don't know, I admitted. Not therapy. Not school. Just a space. She pushed the pillow off her face. Sat up. You mean like a support group? I shook my head. Not even that formal. Just somewhere people can sit. Talk. Or not talk. No, they're not alone. Emily looked at me. Then said the most Emily thing she could have said. Sounds like a cult. I'm in. We started small. The back room of an old church that let us use the space for free on Monday nights. It smelled like crayons and lemon cleaner. The lights buzzed. The folding chairs wobbled. But it was a start. We called it the side room. Because that's what it was, a side room off the main hall. Quiet. Forgotten. Ours. The first week, 3 people came. Harper. A girl named Joe who didn't speak at all. And a boy with headphones who sat in the corner and cried without sound. We didn't force conversation. We just sat. We played lo-fi music. Put out coffee and tea and sad little cookies from the grocery outlet. I brought a whiteboard. On it, I wrote. You don't have to explain. Just exist. By week 3, we had 9 people. Week 5, 17. We didn't advertise. Just word of mouth, scribbled flyers, and a shared Google Doc with meeting times. People came because someone told them. They won't fix you, but they'll see you. And that was enough. We kept showing up. Even when no one talked. Even when people left and never came back. We bought bean bags. Colored string lights. A used couch someone's cousin donated. We called our little routine survival rituals. Make the tea. Set the music. Put out the paper and pens. Open the door. Leave judgment outside. One night Joe, the girl who hadn't spoken in 2 months, walked in with a handmade bracelet. She handed it to me without a word. A thread of pink and blue and gray. I wore it every day after that. A week later, she said her first words. I don't feel invisible here. Another night, someone left behind a note folded into a paper crane. Inside it read, I didn't do it. I almost did. But I didn't. Thank you. I still have it. It lives in my wallet. Between my ID and my library card. Proof. Not that I saved someone, but that sometimes presence is enough. Of course, not everything was beautiful. Some nights were heavy. Some kids never came back. Some stories made it hard to sleep. There were moments when I wondered if I was strong enough to keep carrying their pain. When my own shadows curled at the edges of the light I was trying to hold up. But then someone would show up for the first time, with tired eyes and sleeves pulled too far over their wrists, and say, someone told me this place was real. And I'd nod, because it was. Not perfect, not polished, just real. It took 2 years for the community center to notice us. They offered us a grant, a bigger room, a lock on the door. I cried when we got the key, not because we'd made it, but because someone finally believed we existed. And by then I did too. I used to think growth would erase the pain, that helping others would help me outgrow my own shadow. But I was wrong. Sometimes helping others is what brings the pain back into focus, makes it sharper, more personal. Because when you open a door for someone, you can't control who walks through. It was a Thursday. We just moved into the new space. 2 small rooms, beige walls, fake plants, a couch that didn't sag in the middle. I brought donuts. Emily brought flyers. Harper was leading that week's circle. That's when I saw her. Back of the room. Hood up. Hair dyed jet black, but I would have known her posture anywhere. Maya. We weren't friends. We were almost something. She used to sit behind me in 11th grade chemistry, making little jokes under her breath that made me smile even when I didn't want to. One time she caught me staring at the floor in the middle of a test. She didn't ask if I was okay. She just slipped me a note that said, "You don't have to carry it alone." I never responded. A week later she stopped coming to class. Rumors said she switched schools. Others said rehab. Someone said she tried. No one really knew. And now she was here. In my space. In the room I'd built from my broken pieces. I didn't talk to her that night. I didn't have to. She sat in the corner with her headphones around her neck, fidgeting with the seam of her hoodie. Didn't speak. Didn't cry. But she came back the next week. And the one after. She still hadn't looked me in the eye. And I still hadn't told her the truth, that the day she stopped coming to school, I started spiraling again. That I used to wonder if her silence was something I'd earned. One night after everyone else left, she stayed. Sat on the couch while I gathered cups and closed windows. Then she spoke. "You remember me?" I turned. Nodded. She smiled kind of. Not with her mouth, with her eyes. "I remember you too," she said. "You looked like you were barely holding it together. So I figured I'd say something before you snapped." I laughed. Not because it was funny, but because it was true. "I should have said thank you," I told her. She shrugged. "Too late for that." I looked down, ashamed. Then she said, "But you did something better." I looked up. "You made this place." She leaned back, arms crossed. I came here thinking it would be fake, that it would be full of people pretending not to bleed. But it's not. It's honest. I sat beside her, and for a few minutes we just breathed the same air. Then she asked the question I hadn't been ready for. Have you ever lost someone? I nodded, but she didn't stop there. Someone you tried to save? I paused, thought about it, and then I told her the truth. There was a boy, I said. He came to 3 meetings, talked a little, smiled sometimes. Then he stopped coming. She waited. A month later I saw a post. His sister wrote it. Said he passed away. Quietly. At home. I didn't cry. I didn't explain. I just said, I couldn't save him. Maya nodded like she already knew, then whispered, You're not supposed to save everyone. That's when I realized something. She wasn't asking for a hero. She was giving me permission to stop being one. That night, I went home and opened the drawer in my desk where I kept old notes. I reread the ones that hurt, the ones with dates that never came back, the names that turned into silence. And I didn't try to forget them. I lit a candle, read each name aloud, and said the only thing I ever needed to say. I remember you. Because even when they're gone, we carry them. Not as guilt, not as ghosts, but as reminders that we once held someone in the dark and gave them one more hour of light. The first time I told my story out loud, my voice shook so badly I had to hold the chair to stay upright. It wasn't a planned speech. It wasn't a campaign or a brand. It was just time. We had a full room that night. Almost 30 people. New faces. Familiar ones. A few I'd worried I'd never see again. Emily had lit the little tea lights around the room and Joe had drawn a chalkboard sign that read, No one here is broken. Just becoming. I sat in the circle, heart in my throat. I looked at Maya. At Harper. At a freshman boy who hadn't said a single word in 3 weeks but kept showing up anyway. Then I said, I almost died when I was 17. Silence. No gasps. No shifts. Just stillness, the kind that holds. I didn't plan to tell anyone tonight, I said, but I think you deserve to know that I'm not just someone who started a thing. I was the kid you are. I was the one sitting in the dark. I paused, felt the burn behind my eyes, tried not to cry, failed. I wrote a note. I left it on my desk. I meant it. Every word. My hands were sweating. My voice trembled. But someone knocked on my window. And for reasons I still don't understand, I opened it. And that changed everything. Emily sat to my left. She didn't look at me. She didn't need to. I didn't wake up the next day healed. I didn't go to therapy and magically feel whole. I didn't find faith or clarity or purpose right away. I smiled, a small one. I found exhaustion, shame, fear, but also breath. A few people nodded. I built this place not because I know how to save anyone. I don't. I built it because once someone sat with me in silence long enough for me to survive the night. More silence, but not the empty kind, the sacred kind. That's when I realized something. No one needed me to be invincible. They just needed me to be real. And that night I was. After the circle broke, a girl I'd never seen before walked up to me. She didn't say anything at first. Then she pulled up her sleeve. A faded scar. Old. She pointed at it and said, Me too. Then she pulled her sleeve down, took a deep breath, and whispered, Thank you for saying it out loud. People always ask when it gets better. I tell them I don't know. But it does get different. The pain changes shape. The silence fills with new sounds, footsteps, pages turning, tea being poured. Life doesn't roar back. It returns slowly, one deep breath at a time. It's been 5 years since that night. The one where I left a note and thought I wouldn't wake up. Today that note is framed. Not to glorify the pain, but to remind me that I made it through. That version of me was real. She was hurting. She was so tired. But she survived long enough to become someone else. Someone who now unlocks the doors to a building with a handmade sign out front that reads, You belong here. We dropped the name Side Room a while ago. Outgrew it. Now we're just called Hollow Light Center. Because we believe light doesn't have to be blinding to be real. Sometimes it's soft. Sometimes it's barely there. But it's always enough. We have couches now. A bookshelf with dog-eared poetry. A corner with a puzzle always half finished. We don't do therapy here. We do presence. Some come to cry. Some come to color. Some just sit, headphones on, surrounded by the hum of people who understand. And once a month we light one candle for everyone who stayed. And everyone who almost didn't. I still get messages sometimes. From kids who left town. From parents who never understood. From the girl with the scar who now volunteers every Friday night, pouring tea like it's a sacred act. Sometimes I reread the old journal entries. The ones where I beg the universe for a reason. For a way out. Or way through. I don't have all the answers. But I have something better. I have a room. And chairs. And names. And the sound of soft laughter from people who, 5 years ago, thought they'd never laugh again. I sit at the desk near the front window most afternoons, watching the light shift across the floor. And some days, when it's quiet, I whisper thank you. To no one and everyone. To the knock at the window. To the girl who stayed. To the version of me that chose to open the curtain. And I write. Not poems. Not journal entries. Just one sentence again and again. I'm so glad I stayed. And now I hope others stay too.